As we look around the world today, there's so much going on that is traumatizing so many people, and we're seeing all these repeating patterns of human history. And you might wonder, haven't we learned anything from the past? Why do we keep repeating these things? What's going on? And it's possible, it's just possible for a moment, that what's happening is actually calling us back to wholeness. That all these traumas are actually some kind of evolutionary intelligence, a sacred survival mechanism that, when we meet it with compassion and presence, can become a gateway to wholeness. And we're going to hear about that today from our guest, Michael Stone, who has authored a book, Traumatized, a Love Story, Healing the Wounds that Separate, Alienate, and Marginalize Us. Tune in to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, everyone. That show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we're doing here on this tiny blue dot in the middle of a whole lot of blackness and stars. And I'm your host, Kerri Hummingbird, and I love coming in here week after week and having these conversations and exploring this thing we call being human, as well as being souls, as well as being on the planet during a great awakening. And yeah, sometimes it's just a hot mess. There's just a lot going on. I just want to be really raw and real with you guys. Like, there's so much going on and you almost can't even keep up with all the revelations that are happening. This is like the year of revelations. Just so powerful to see everything exposed for what it was under the surface, and to get down to what really matters, to get through all the layers of the false and the previous outgoing matrix, and to open up to what actually matters, what's really true. And in the middle of that, what's really true is this whole series of healing: ancestral healing, child healing, familial healing, pattern healing, collective healing, and also rewiring. Like, what is it that we've all been through? What does it actually mean that we went through trauma? And how do you come to terms with that? There's a lot of people being traumatized right now at this very, very moment on the planet with all the things going on. There's a lot of people going through serious trauma. And yet on the other side of a person who's been through trauma, I know that there's so much gold inside that experience to be claimed, to evolve through, to understand myself through. And this is the soul level perspective. It's a different perspective than the perspective of the temporary part of us that goes through the painful experience. But we get to bring that soul into the conversation now with this great awakening that we're having, and see things through different eyes, and hopefully really bring some grace to these repeating human patterns that we're seeing unfold in front of us. They're just, wow, there they are. And there's a lot that people are feeling right now, a lot of things that are traumatizing and difficult. And so today's guest, I know, is going to help us with this because of his own deep experience of trauma and moving through it, not as something to be fixed, but something that is really sacred intelligence here to teach us more about love and call us back to our wholeness. And today's guest is Michael Stone. He's a spiritual teacher and author, the author of the recent book, Traumatized, a love story, healing the wounds that separate, alienate, and marginalize us. His work actually reframes trauma. We're going to hear all about it. There's just so much that we need to move through collectively and individually. And I just know that this is going to be a great conversation. I feel like it's going to serve a lot of people, Michael. So thank you for your presence and for being with us.
Thank you, Kerri. It's an honor to be on your show.
So I know that from what you shared with me about yourself, that you went through a really traumatic loss at 2.5. Did you want to share with us about that experience and what got you catalyzed on healing trauma?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a trauma poster child in many ways. I grew up in trauma. Both my parents were at Pearl Harbor. They were right in the middle of the bombing. My father was a fighter pilot. They didn't get any planes off the ground. My mother was the assistant to the Pacific Fleet in the Women's Air Force. And they were really majorly impacted by it, what we would call PTSD or more than that at this point. Uh, my mother, for the first 2.5 years, attempted to kill me, put a pillow over my face if I'd cry, and they had to take a knife away from her a number of times. And she was psychotic and ill, and she was under doctor's care. But at 2.5, I came home from being at the park with my grandmother where I was living and found her hanging. So that was the first big trauma, the original one. And there were many other traumas. My dog was also hung when I was 7. I found him hanging on the fence. That was pretty brutal for a 7-year-old. And I won't go into all the details, but I think one of the biggest ones then when my daughter was 4, my wife was brutally raped and murdered in Carmel, and I was under suspicion, not by the police, but by other people and the family of my wife for 42 years before they finally, with DNA evidence, put the right person back in jail. So that's a lot of trauma. And it kind of set my course. And at an early point in I had I'd been kind of pretty much a rebel in my childhood, also into drugs and alcohol, um, and I went and I hitchhiked all over the world for a couple of years. And I came back. I went into the army for a couple of years, also a lot of trauma in there, a lot of loss of friends. Uh, but there was just something in me that kept pushing. And I had this workshop that I did one time, and in that workshop, and after the first weekend of it, I was walking through San Francisco, and I just had this epiphany. You mean I'm responsible for my own life? It was such a revelation. I mean,
Wow.
it's like
Solve so many things.
being a victim, of all these different things that happened to me. I was able to somehow drop that victimhood place and really recognize that I'm responsible for my own life. And that's really the start of my journey. And of course, I'm 80 now. I've been on the journey a very long time. And I did many different things as a teacher. I was on the faculty of the Shift Network. I did organizational development work for 35 years. So I was kind of a corporate shrink. Um, and then I also got into shamanism for several decades. I taught on the Shift Network. I was the host of the Shamanic Wisdom Summit for 8 years, which I started with the Shift Network. And and that's where I got really interested with soul loss. I did a lot of soul retrieval work
Yeah.
with people, many, many, many people. And I found that while I was pretty good at it and people would have a good experience, a few weeks later they'd come back with the same issues. And I thought, this something's not right about this. I'm doing everything like I've been taught, both through Sandra Ingerman, through my guides in the Amazon that I spent a lot of time with. And so I just got really more curious about, what is a soul and how do you lose your soul and how do you get it back? And, I had been doing it with guides and drumming and different music and all kinds of things. I'm also a Gabrielle Roth five rhythms teacher for now 50 years. Sounds funny to say that. I don't feel 80,
50
but,
years. Yeah. That's some
but
experience.
Gabrielle was a huge influence in me
Mhm.
because one of the things that happens with trauma is you leave your body. You know, you
Mhm.
perhaps it would be good to talk a little bit about what trauma is because I have a somewhat different definition than the clinical definition of trauma. So first of all, trauma is not the thing that happens to us, and that's really important. If it was what happened to us, then it would be indelible. We couldn't do anything. It's not what happens to us, it's what happens in us in the face of an overwhelming circumstance. So the nervous system, which has been evolving for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, has created the capacity that in an overwhelming situation, it uh, fragments part of our essence and suppresses it into the body. And it becomes numbness or tension, or more accurately, it becomes numbing and tensing because it's kind of like your refrigerator, it's plugged into the wall to keep your food cold. Well, you're plugged in and using chi dollars constantly to keep these things suppressed that we don't want to feel, that have been fragmented and broken off and are lodged in the body. So the work with Gabrielle and the movement work was a huge teacher for me, and still is. Uh, uh, I don't do it every week now. I do it once a month, but I still DJ and we just rock the house this for,
That's
for Day
awesome.
of the Dead on Sunday, and still a totally packed house. So I'm still DJing and doing that kind of stuff at 80. But when I go back to trauma, so first there's the experience, the overwhelming experience. Then there's the what happened in me. And then there's how did I deal with what happened in me. So when we have a trauma experience, let's take just the basic developmental trauma to start with and look at that. So, in developmental trauma, in order for a child to learn how to regulate, or an adult to regulate, he or she has to have the opportunity to be felt, seen, heard, held, and protected by a caring witness who looks lovingly into the eyes of the child, because I can't really learn how to self-regulate without co-regulation. So trauma is happens in a relationship, and the work that I do is trauma gets healed in relationship.
Mm.
So, and not just with a therapist, and certainly not with talk therapy, because it's in the body. So talk therapy doesn't touch it. It does other things, but not dealing with trauma. So if you look at that developmental part, and the child didn't get felt seen, then there are different ways that we cope, that we adjust to that, and that really shape our life experience. The part where I develop a strategy to protect myself is when uh, let's give an example of, say, my parents were fighting all the time and yelling, and then there was a divorce. Very common place that trauma happens. And if I'm a youngster, a young person, and I'm witnessing this, and my parents are fighting, and it's dangerous, and I'm scared, and I say something's wrong here, you know, but I never say something's wrong with my caregivers because my survival is dependent on them. I say something's wrong with me, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't fix this. So then is the adaptation. So I've got the overwhelming experience, what happened in me, and then how did I adapt to that? Well, I'll be the support person. I'll support my mother, or I'll be the helper, or I'll be the fixer, and I find these things, and it's really interesting that those early adaptations often become our career. I become a doctor or a nurse or a therapist or whatever, but often driven in a way that is not healthy, that keeps us moving faster and faster and working harder and harder so we don't have to feel the pain that is lodged in our body, that is taking these chi dollars like the refrigerator. It's constantly taking energy from us. So it's exhausting is one of the things that happen. The side effects of trauma, to know what it's like, is the first one, the biggest one, is a sense of separate self. I'm separate from you, and of course that makes sense because where are you, Kerri? What state are you in? You're in LA? No,
Austin, Texas, actually.
Austin, Texas. Beautiful place. You're in Austin. I'm in Grass Valley, California, in the foothills, and it appears, well, yeah, you're over there and I'm over here, and that's one way to know someone. But a much more real way of knowing someone is you, Kerri, show up in my nervous system, and I, Michael, show up in your nervous system. And my capacity to know you is equal to the circumference of my capacity to know myself. So,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
so you can see how this leads to the developmental opportunities that happen when I shift the focus then, and the world's healing is really tied up in my healing. So you said something, I don't know if it was on this earlier or in a show I watched with you, but I love how you look at it with a broader lens. And that's very much the perspective I have, that in healing trauma, I'm looking at the individual and familial, I'm looking at the ancestral, and I'm looking at the collective. And it's in the system that the trauma lives, and it's in fixing the trauma that it really impacts my family, my relationships, and really impacts the world. So for me, trauma healing is soul growth. That's how we grow our soul. The things that we came in to work with are the things that grow our soul. Of course, it took me a long, long time to actually understand that and get clear about that. So the basic idea with working with trauma is, instead of looking at it from the perspective of a disease or a problem, something to get rid of, or a pathology, or something's broken, that is not at all. It's an amazing intelligence that's been evolving for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not to turn away from, not to suppress, not to get rid of. It's to turn towards it. And of course, the mystical sciences have said this for, tens of thousands of years, that if when there's this trauma comes up, or this difficulty, or anything that I say, I had a really hard conversation, or that was really difficult, and we turn away from it. And what we end up doing is we put it into after time. So after time, when I'm looking at trauma, I'm looking at unfinished past. It's actually
Hmm.
the same thing that you think of when you think of karma. It's the same thing. It's unfinished past. So I'm carrying all this unfinished past of myself, of the legacy burdens from my ancestors, and of the collective. And it's all weaving itself together all the time.
Yeah. And that's really what most people don't realize is that
Mhm.
A lot of what motivates people to act in somewhat horrendous ways is not just their idea. Like they didn't just one day wake up and say, "Oh, I want to go attack people as they're leaving their home." They didn't just say that. They did it because they have this whole system that they're swimming around in that's like ancestral or in the land, even, energy in the land that's not cleared. That's like part of what they're walking around in. It's influencing their mindset and their ideas and their perceptions, right? They're walking around in a whole soup of ideas that they may not even realize that they have. And then they're acting from it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I meant by separation, too, to come full circle around. It's separate from myself, it's separate from the other, it's separate from the nature and our connection with nature. Every single issue on this planet right now, you mentioned all the turmoil and insanity that's going on. It all, whether it's climate change, enslavement, racism, war, immigration issues, all of these, at the very heart of them is trauma, unfinished past. You look at Gaza, unfinished past, Israel. You look at Russia and Ukraine. You look at Haiti. Wherever you look, it's all unfinished past.
And we have to finish it, but we have to finish it from the inside. That's the part I think that, I invite people to this, Michael. Like I say, okay, I see all the things happening in the world and you can protest, and that's one appropriate response. But what if instead, or in addition to, you come inside and you process and heal your own interaction with what you're witnessing? Because probably you've got a piece of the puzzle. If it's catching your attention, you've got an ancestral piece or you've got a soul past piece or something that is really showing up for you. Because why? Because you have unfinished business. You've got to heal that inside, and then as you heal that, it's like you're providing magical healing codes out into the rest of the collective that people can just like bonus points, like claim that for themselves, and it's that much easier for them to heal if we all kind of share these codes, right? And the light goes around the planet, I don't know, my friend Jennifer Huff is a physicist. She says like 7 times a second or some ridiculous amount of time. The healed codes, we share them almost instantly with everybody. So like going inside is actually, I think, the place to be. What do you think? I mean, I feel like that's how we're going to heal this.
It's the only place to be. It's the only place that will heal. It's not just one place. It is the place. It all starts, whatever issue we're dealing with, no matter how far out it is in the world, it always starts, and always when we get lost, it's always coming back to our own circumference, working with ourselves. That's the first level of healing. If you can't do that, you're not going to heal anything else. And much of the healing, I was major environmentalist. I had a radio show for 17 years, environmental, social justice, and spiritual teachers. And it's always bring it home first, because that's where the healing means. And that's, we hold ourselves separate from nature, but we are nature. That's insane. But it is part of the trauma. We've separated ourselves. And that's when I say the first issue of trauma is separation. It's separation from myself, from family, from ancestors, from culture, more than anything else, from earth, from
And
our planet.
I love that you talk about the mother wound as well, because I was also called to write a book about healing the mother wound called Love is Fierce. I had a white Buffalo woman came to me and it's like, "You're going to write a book with me." And I was like, "Oh no," because I had a terrible relationship with my mom. And I thought, "Uh-oh, she's got my number. I'm going to write this book." But that's, I know that you had such a trauma with your mom and how she was in such psychosis, and she wasn't obviously able to be a really nurturing presence in your life in your young childhood, which is the time I feel, if we're going to be early on stable in our lives, like that's fairly helpful to have a stable presence. Maybe your grandma was that for you, but it just feels like that's so important. And I feel like a lot of what we're seeing in the world, this mistreatment of the planet, this mistreatment of women goes back to, this trauma of separation, this choice, this soul choice, I think, to have this experience of feeling like there was no God and we were just people and that was it. And cut it all off and just pretend. And it's, that's great. We experienced it. But now what? We got to come back to remember who we are in truth. And a lot of that has to do with healing the mother wound. It has to do with reconnecting ourselves to our divine mother that's always here, that never left,
Mhm.
and has always been guiding us, even if we forgot. And to heal all these strange ideas that people have adopted over this experiment that would pollute the waters, so to speak, the womb in which life is grown
Mhm.
by hating the vessel that is bringing forth life. Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your thoughts are that you want to
Oh,
share, but I
I'm
mean,
loving what you're saying, Kerri. It's great. I'll tell you something about my relationship with my mother, because first of all, when you're looking at your ancestors, they're not in a box somewhere in the ground or in ashes in the air. They live in your body. Everything that ever happened is in your body, like the Library of Alexandria, and it's all time coded. Everything there are orders of love in that system. Bert Hellinger, I don't know if you know his work, family constellation work,
yeah,
but
I'm good friends with Gary Stewart, who is a protege of his.
oh,
Yeah.
lovely. Yeah, I studied with him many years ago, 70s or early 80s. But so combining the things that I did, the mother wound was obviously a big way. And I never really could make my mother wrong. I kind of held her as a divinity almost, as a sacred person. My father, that's different. He was just absent in my life. So he was a good target. But I remember when I was teaching shamanism and did a shamanic journey, and part of when you do a shamanic journey, you need kind of a guide, a gatekeeper to help you. One of the best ways is to navigate the territory because you're really working with subtle energy. And so I work with people and do a journey with them, and they go and they find a guide, and it helps them to heal wounded areas and in there. So I did one for myself, and I said, give me a spirit guide, and I had my raven, came and we went to the upper world. We did all the things you do in shamanism, and my intention was to find a guide for my ancestor. And I get to the upper world, and who should show up but my mother with her arms outstretched, welcoming,
Oh, that's beautiful.
just,
Oh,
years and realizing she's always been there. She's always been there, I mean, the crazy stuff I've done and gone through in my life, I should have been killed at 20, but or at least 30, but somehow, I continued to survive. And so she's really become an ally. And I think you're healing when you can bow down to your parents and honor them for the life you've been given, no matter what happened. And I've been able to do that with both my parents, and they are both guides. Um, my father was a little harder than my mother actually, and I really had to open up my senses. And finally, I bought some of his shaving lotion, men in aftershave. And I remembered that was what he used, and I ordered some. They're still making it. And I started doing meditation and calling in my father by putting on the aftershave. And now I love it. I go use the aftershave. But so healing, when we do any kind of healing in us, it ripples back through the ancestry. So that's how ancestors don't have bodies. They can't do the work because the work is physical. But when you heal some part of you, that ripples back and heals unfinished past. And how that happens is by presencing that connection with the ancestor. So, I have a particular, when I work with both individuals and with circles, I do a lot of trauma circles because, like I said, when, healing in a group is much faster and deeper than healing with just a therapist or I do one-on-one when it's really clinical, difficult issue. But most of the time, I just love my circles. It's just I fall in love,
It's
and
all that mirror, the mirroring of the people. It's like
yeah,
because everyone's working a piece of the same puzzle. And as soon as one person gets a piece, everybody else also, like we were saying, they simultaneously get that piece, but then they can apply it to their puzzle and it fits exactly. So it's just like, yeah, it's a miracle. It goes so fast. It's
yeah,
kind of exciting.
it's very exciting. And right now, we need resources, and one of the greatest resources we can deal with is ancestors. So when we're traumatized, one of the things is to go to resources, a beloved grandmother or aunt or uncle or grandfather or something. That's part, I mean, there's many kinds of resources, but resourcing ourselves is going into nature or thinking about people that we love or doing things that we really love doing, painting or art, or for me, it's writing, many different areas where, because sometimes when we turn, it's just too much. And then we have to, what's called titrate. We have to move back to resource ourselves. And then we can feel a little bit more. My circles, I always say, we're creating a safe space here, but not so safe that it isn't a little bit uncomfortable. Because that's the whole point of you have to turn towards that. So the kind of model that I've developed and I write about in my book, Traumatized, a Love Story, is the first step is really presencing, bringing ourselves into a grounded state of presence, our breath, feeling the sensations in our body, recognizing how close we are to the earth, just noticing the emotions that there. I don't think I could feel my emotions till I was 40. I thought my feelings and emotions are not the same thing. Emotions are of the body. They're like, you know, you feel them. They're movement in the body. We're movement. Emotions are movement. And so when you look at feelings, they're of the mind. They're like, I'm having this feeling because I got the partner, I got the house, I got rid of the partner, whatever it was, is a feeling. And they, of course, affect our emotions. But emotions, so take happiness. Happiness is something I got that thing that I wanted. And I'm really happy for 10 minutes, maybe, but I'm happy. Okay. But joy, joy is an upwelling. It's like you can't stop singing, or it's like a tree. It's a tree, and I have to be with this tree. And so it's really much more physical when we're doing that. So in the first stage is really presencing whatever's there, just coming into an alignment with what's here, not trying to get rid of anything, not trying to shift anything, and then witnessing is really where we deepen that. We raise the resolution, meditation, contemplation, prayer. These things are ways that we can increase the resolution and the coherence with what's happening in ourselves. And so that's, really deepening and being with the discomfort that comes from meeting that trauma symptom, the triggers, those triggers that come up. Most of the time when we're upset about something, it isn't even the thing that's happening. It's something that happened in the past that this is an unwitting reminder of. So, but that part of, once I can move into the witnessing and stay with it and be with it and breathe into it, then I go into embracing. Can I love it? Thich Nhat Hanh said, I was in Plum Village and he said something one time. He said, can we love our little anger? It was so, and I just like, I
That's sweet.
was like in tears. Can we
Oh,
love our
oh.
anger? He's Thich Nhat Hanh, so it's so beautiful. But it's true. Can we love those parts that we've been pushing away? And when we say, I want to get rid of a part, I want to get rid of this fear, I want to get rid of this anger, whatever it is, and I want to get rid of it, We've already suppressed that at the time when the overwhelming experience happened. So we're trying to get rid of something we've already pushed away. So it just, the nervous system says, you're not going there. I'm protecting this guy. I'm protecting this person. And so those parts that we've already abandoned, that's what it is. We abandon these parts. And then when you try to get rid of it again, you're re-abandoning it and reinforcing the nervous system's need to feel to protect you. And that's amazing.
Yeah,
So
it's powerful how it works even between lifetimes. I mean, that's something I experienced in this lifetime was just how a past life, you were talking about what's unresolved in the past, had so much trauma in it that it actually, I needed to process that in this life because doing it from that context was too painful. And so almost like in this life, I was experiencing what I needed to do in order to come to peace with the past life, but also the trauma of the past life. I had a soul retrieval from a Cherokee shaman when I went begging for help, to the tourist village. And he literally was like, oh, okay, this woman needs help. And he just took that soul part and just flung it right through the back of my ancestral portal. And then I'm like reliving, for like a decade, healing and reliving being on the Trail of Tears because it was too painful to process everything that was happening in that lifetime. Like it was, went from my favorite life, right? My favorite people, my favorite conditions, my people that understood love, like just my favorite everything, to like having it all ripped away. That was too much. So that soul retrieval, it's like it needed to happen in stages in this life, particularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know any of this. I just knew I liked the Native American on the television that cried when there was littering. I was called to that. I was called to powwows. I didn't look at me. I didn't have any reason to. But it's like you start to realize things on this path.
Yeah. And it keeps expanding, keeps growing. It
does.
Or you do the work. And that's what's really needed now on the planet. So we only talked about the first symptom.
Yeah.
Trauma,
There's more.
Separate self. So the second biggest side effect is a sense of scarcity. Not enough. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough people that think like me, which impacts belonging. And in fact, belonging is a really interesting, we could spend a whole thing talking about belonging.
Belonging is part of the whole matrix, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. And so what we do so often to get a sense of belonging, we other people. And when we other people to belong, we're creating a break in soul connection. We're a break in the divine. The divine law is really simple, not to. It's not that difficult to understand divine law. It's just no bifurcation, not to. But when we try to belong by separating others, we create that distance and we create wars and fights and all that thing. But scarcity, this sense of not enough is rampant. I mean, you look at the billionaires who they have to have another $1 billion, or the millionaires. It's just not enough. Or people are always talking about, I'm so busy, I have no time. My partner said something, oh, I've got so much to do today, I'm so busy. And I said, you're not busy, you're just calendared.
Yeah, you have choice over all those things.
All right. You got things in your calendar to do. You don't have to be busy about that. But that's part of that mindset of there's just not enough of anything. And that's a huge impact on the state of the world right now.
It's the Native Americans call that Wetiko. It's like the bottomless pit of hunger that can never be filled, right?
Yeah, endless hunger, right?
It's endless hunger. And what is it hungry for? Love.
Mhm.
But it's trying to find it through addictions, right? Through food, through alcohol, through all the things to try
Yeah, sex,
money,
name it. Yeah.
you name it, right? Material world stuff. It's never going to be filled that way.
No, no. It's I always say, I've said for years, community is the currency of the future, you know,
Yeah.
and it works with that sense of scarcity. The
It's like reweaving the web, as part of this whole healing the mother wound thing that you were talking about, is like reweaving the web of human connectivity, but from a different place that's not all about codependency or like, I need you to be what I need you to be so I can be happy, or I have expectations, or you're my resource. So I'm going to wrap all my roots around you and squeeze you dry because I need, it's like, no, sink your roots down to the earth. There's plenty for everyone. It's called source. And then we can play together in a whole different way, which I'm really excited for, Michael. I want to play like that. I mean, you came here to create that. I know you know. And so did I. And so, how do we create that? How do we move from power over to power within?
when you look at separation, the antidote is connection. When you look at scarcity and not enough, the antidote is gratitude. What you appreciate appreciates, builds. So having a gratitude practice and practicing gratitude as a prayer is the antidote to that sense of not enough. It comes from I'm not enough, this belief in I'm not enough, which is part of the wounding that happens. So that's
That's part of the trauma, too, right? Like when I look at some certain people that are demonstrating to us right now in a very loud ways what's wrong, right? The lack of a mother figure that was able to care is one big piece, I think. And we can look at it and say, this toddler didn't have a mother figure, and so there's like a whole set of circumstances that unfolded in this one's life that led to all the behaviors and all the decisions. And this
yeah.
is not just one person, there's a lot of people, right? That there's just an emblem for a part of our collective. But we need to heal that. I mean, that's we go inside, right, to heal our piece of it, and then it ripples out. But what do you see as the path?
What I find in that is cultivating a relationship with the Divine Mother can heal all of that. That when I recognize that, then I can open to, yeah, my mother was mean and yelled at me and did bad things, but so did her grandmother, so did that. But if I put it in the context of the Divine Mother, then I can honor and bow down to the fact that my mother gave me life and that I am held by the Divine Mother always. And that's another way of saying I'm held by the earth. It's the same thing, really. So I think really cultivating that relationship with the Divine Mother is very essential to people's healing, and especially with the mother wound. Yeah. So, and then the third side effect is just to go through a couple side effects is a break in space time, and that's a difficult one for some people to actually get. So here we are, we're carrying the weight of unfinished past, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this idea that the past is back there and the future's out here. But that is completely wanko.
Yeah.
And anybody that hears me say that will go, oh, well, here's, some stargazer. But time is always now. And unfinished past. So you have integrated past means I've been present with it. It no longer triggers me, whatever. I can be with my mother. She can be crazy as a loon, but I can still love her and be with her. Or I can be with anybody. That's that. So integrated past is presence. So it's now, it's always presence. It's not somewhere else. Unintegrated past is destiny. We will live into the same issues over and over and over again until we allow the nervous system to heal. And it's not about fixing or changing anything. The nervous system, just like if I cut my finger, right, and there's a scab there, and if I kept picking at it, oh, I don't like that scab, that's an ugly scab, I'd lose my finger. Well, the nervous system is the same way. It's designed to heal. That's why we have these repetition compulsions. This thing. There's a therapy called imago therapy. Another way to think of imago is that we marry our unfinished business.
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
some people can relate to that, right? So that part of me that needs to heal will find a person that will trigger those parts in me because my nervous system wants to heal. And if I can know that and I can work with that with the other person, I can have a wild, crazy, fighting relationship, but it's a growing relationship because it's ethical, it's grounded. It's like when you go crazy, I'm going to hold the ground. When I go crazy, you hold the ground. And sometimes it doesn't happen and you're off to the races, but just knowing that. So bringing presence to it is always, presencing is the first order to notice when we're distancing, when we're absencing, when we're pulling ourselves away, when we leave our body. I teach meditation also. And, you know, people will say, I was doing so well, but I had a bad meditation and I've lost my ability to meditate now. Nonsense. You actually settled enough stuff that the real shit comes up that you now get
Yeah.
to work with. That's not a bad meditation. That's great, but you need to face it. And but people use meditation often as a bypass of
Mm.
not having to confront those things. But a good meditation is one where yeah, I'll have times when I'm really spacious and feel the eternal stillness out to the edges of the universe. That's wonderful. I love that. But there's also times when all hell breaks loose and there's bugs on my skin and snakes in my mouth and hair and all hell's breaking loose. I can barely sit still. It's so bad. And I just, can I just be with that? Because that's the nervous system trying to heal, especially the kind of shaking and movement like this.
Mm.
That's a
Mhm.
healing. That's healing. When a zebra is on the savannah and a lion attacks it, and then goes off and leaves it lying there, and it's playing dead, the first thing it'll do is get up and shake like that, and then go on doing zebra stuff. You know. So shaking is one of the antidotes for dealing with trauma. Osho has a 45-minute meditation, I think, that he used to do that's just shaking, 45 minutes of shaking. Try it. It's difficult.
Yeah, it would be really hard to shake that long.
10 minutes is like, oh my God, I can't go on. But it really allows you to shake things up. So that break in space time. The other thing is that people think the future is out here. The future is never out there. The future is always in the present. When I am fully present, the conditions for future to unfold come out of presence. They don't come out of, hope that it's going to happen. In fact, hope is one of the great spiritual bypasses. It's how I'm hoping so that I don't have to feel the shit that's going on in me now. So I keep myself in a place of hope. So it's postponed, excuse me, postponed experience that's being, pushed out so I don't have to deal with it. So, one of my messages is let go of hope. Faith, that's another thing. I'm big on faith, but hope is just a bypass that we do to not have to feel the terror that some of us are carrying, the horrors that we carry that aren't even ours. Sometimes they're 5 generations back from a war that, our grandfather shot innocent people and carried shame, and now the shame gets passed down as a contract, as a legacy burden. And until I can discover and see that and feel it, then it's going to continue. I'll pass it on to my children. So it's the same thing. I think the the fourth thing that I often look for when I'm, kind of assessing where people are is the need to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be in control. Everything's got to be, I got to know what's going to happen. That's totally a trauma wound, And again, the antidote to the third one was presencing. The antidote to the fourth one, really, of this need to be in control is allow yourself to step into the unknown and cultivate not knowing. Cultivate not knowing. How can I actually work on recognizing all the things I don't know? When I know something, I kill the alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't know something, I have a greater field of possibility. I can, even naming things, when we name things, we cut ourselves off. We have such a small capacity because we've named everything, you know. It doesn't allow for the sacred to move through me. The soul heals in whispers, not in, neon lights. It's like the soul whispers, and it whispers, you could just feel that, and allow yourself to feel it. And that's, again, how we grow. Our soul grows in those moments when we can just step into the unknown and the mystery and embrace the mystery, and not knowing. And we're part of how we're pointing fingers at who's right and who's wrong in the world right now and what's good and what's bad. That is not helping at all. you know can we befriend the people and actually not agree with, but actually be connected with the people that we highly disagree with? It's easy to deal with people that are like that are in my circle, but can I actually befriend the religious zealot or the maniac politician, or not naming any names here, but uh, that we've got very traumatized people running our world.
Yeah.
Almost all the countries have maniacs running the country, and that's because of the ego that gets created from trauma.
Yeah. And then when you see what they do, that can bring up a lot of your own trauma response and your own anger and your own frustration and your own, like, get this person out of here, like, when's the universe going to take care of this kind of feeling? But like, and this is something I work with myself because I got my own trauma wounds around, especially masculine who act like this. Then we could, instead of sending care and love, which is what would melt a lot of this,
What they need,
we
yeah.
we send antagonism and you know use our witchy crafts to hex the patriarchy, which I understand, but it creates more fear then, because that's exactly what's feared, and then the fear compounds the fear, and then everyone's operating
And
in
fear and reaction.
fear and reaction. Yeah.
We can do a whole show on fear.
Okay.
uh, I know we're getting close to the time here, but you know, uh, uh, fear is an invitation, not trying to get rid of and escape it. It's like bringing awareness to our fear. Fear heightens our perception. If we can stay with fear, we can really learn. I mean, there's so much. If you ever want to do a show on just fear, we could
Yeah,
spend a whole hour talking about that.
let's do that. You might have to come back, Michael.
I'm I'm always open to being on podcasts, so I love
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great. I love it. What a great conversation, and thank you for bringing your wisdom about healing trauma and being so transparent and bringing your heart to our show today and your presence. So appreciate it.
Well, you're very receptive and easy to be with, so thank you, Kerri. I appreciate that.
Well,
And
thank
I
you.
would be happy to sometime be on your show again.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I think it'd be fun to have a conversation about fear and how fear can be an ally.
yeah.
It's here, so might as well talk to it and see what it's got to say.
So if
Um,
people wanted to get a hold of me, they could go to Well of Light,
yeah.
WELLOFLIGHT, or get my book. It's juicy. It's a combination of a memoir and then reflections at a later age on my story, and then each chapter has three parts, and then a healing uh, tool to learn from. So the most common response to people who read my book, and it's about to come out on Audible too in another 2 weeks, I
Oh,
think.
I love audibles because it catches the
Yeah.
frequency. Yeah.
But the most common thing that people say is, I thought I was reading a book about you. And when I got done, I realized I was reading a book about me.
Oh, that's awesome.
I hear that probably every other person who reads my book says something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you know you really did it. You got it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, so you guys, I'm also going to place in the show notes Michael's free gift. He has a 30-day meditation challenge. I'll point you guys over there. Plus, I'll link to the book, which is on Amazon. So you guys will be able to check it out over there. And the website, everything will be down in the show notes down below. And so thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, Kerri. Thank you.
And I'm going to give kisses. That's what I do at the end of my shows. I give people kisses. You can join me or not, but here they come, everybody. Thank you for staying with us the whole time, everyone. Thanks for staying all the way to the end and for catching every last little juicy bit of this conversation. And thank you for sharing it out with someone that you think would benefit from this conversation. Thanks for sharing it out and for commenting, liking, subscribing, and all the things. Appreciate you so much. And here's your Reiki kisses. Love you, people. Mm. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.